Brenda, you've worked across the globe. You've worked in 6 continents. You've coached over 1,000 senior leaders from 60 nationalities across 70 industries. That's amazing. And in today's world, we're talking a lot about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And I'm curious, given your experience working across the globe with, different cultures, different kinds of people, different companies, industries, what have you found maybe some of the key, the differences as well as the similarities? Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, well, we all are. I love what you say. We are all human beings. And I think that is the crux of great leadership. To remember that we are all human beings. We all have our own stories. And, I was taught at a very early age in my career a great lesson from a leader of mine. And it's kind of a fun story, but in the end, he looked me in the eye, and I had built this great business plan. I mean, a phenomenal business plan. And my team and I were guaranteeing we could build our business in the coming year for 15%. And we were asking for the money we would need to build that business and all that. And it was a great plan to build the business by 15%. And we got done with kind of asking for that to the operating committee. Again, I was quite young in my career. And as we all, and the boss said, good job, well done. I do feel you'll build the business by 15%. And he gets up and we start to walk away, and he says, Brenda, come back in, sit down. Now, I'm assuming he's going to tell me great things because we just, convinced him we could build our business 15%. And I sat down ready to hear my great feedback. And he said, I really do believe you're going to build your business by 15%. No question. He said, but what are you going to do to build your people by 15%? And he said, in fact, you need to build your people by 20% this year, because if you don't build them by 20%, they're not going to be prepared to drive a bigger business next year. And it really brought home to me a very simple concept. As you say, mission of leader all around the world, just two things. We have to build the business. We have to build the people. And the truth is there's more emphasis on people, because the situation right now in particular, but all across the world, is we have to recognize it's the people that are going to deliver the business. The business doesn't deliver itself. And we tend to focus most on the business because I can see the outcomes. I can tell if I'm being successful. I can see if my revenues or my market share or whatever is. And the truth is, unless we really give that more attention to people than business, we won't succeed. I always like to draw a little circle, make a little pie graph. And I'll say to leaders, let's pretend this is a pie graph of your time. What percentage of the time are you spending on building business versus building people? Honestly. And many, many, many times, a leader will look me in the eye and say, honestly, 90, 10, 70. And I say, what do you think it needs to be successful in your career? I said, honestly, probably
the opposite,
vice versa.
It's such an important point, given the challenges we're facing today with HR issues. Have you seen a change over the years, Brenda, in terms of leaders valuing their people? Has it become better? Has it become worse?
Well, I think it has, but I unfortunately, I think it's kind of come that way because you have to. Because in today's great resignation wave, if you're not paying attention, well, your business is going to fail. So leaders are forced almost into recognizing the foundational importance of the people side of things. And that also brings out the concept of culture. Culture is just so critical today. And the way I like to look at culture is pretend that you're making vegetable soup. You've got the vegetables, or maybe you've got the chicken, whatever you want to put in your soup. Those are the kind of things floating around. But the broth of the soup, the liquid of the soup, that's the culture. It's what we swim in. It's the feel of the place. And that has become so critical to today because we're humans. We are sentient beings. We want to work in a place that feels right. And so, building business, building the people, that's the what. But the company, the culture, that's the how. And I think it's woefully being overlooked. It's how that goal is going to be achieved is through the culture. And too many organizations are just overlooking that critically important aspect. So we have to figure out, how do we achieve that goal while working within these multiple cultures, multiple belief systems, multiple, geographies from a others.
Right. And culture is such a complex topic.
It is, but it's fun too.
Yeah.
Because again, come back to what I mentioned earlier, the objective curiosity. I've worked across multiple countries, multiple continents.
Right.
And you have to have that objective curiosity to look at something and say, it's not right or wrong, good or bad. It just is. And how do we achieve the same goal that we want to achieve, keeping in mind this system of cultures or this system of beliefs that's going on in this part of the world? How do we get there? It's kind of fun.
Yeah, and how does this all tie into the personal branding work that you do? Because, you know, different cultures, depending on the country, the region, the lifestyle, they hold different views, the ways they think, as you mentioned. So how does that play in?
Yeah, well, so it's important to remember what a brand is. We haven't really talked about that yet, which is the way I like to define branding is it's the way you want others or people to perceive, think, and feel about you. It's that simple. Perceptions, thoughts, and feelings. You know, perception and reality, and branding is reality. Perception and branding is reality. How people perceive me is my brand, whether I like it or not. And if I don't like how people are perceiving me, then I have a chance to change my brand. That's really key. So as a brand, perception, perceptions, thoughts, and reality, and feelings and thoughts. People think about others, people feel about others, and all three of those work together. Now, as a leader, how people perceive, think, and feel about me is going to make the difference between my success and my failure. It's going to make the difference between whether people are motivated to come to work and work with me, for me, or whether people are thinking about leaving and moving on to a different organization, or whether they're inspired to make a difference and change. And so our brand as a leader is foundational to success, and we often don't pay much attention to it. And so that's why I'm so happy to see so much more attention coming to leadership branding.
So at the core of that, you know, when you're working with different cultures, like in Canada, we have a lot of immigrants. So when they come here, it's, you know, learning the Canadian culture and how do you behave, and it's a little different. You know, how do you mold all of that in to still be your authentic self, but be able to meet the demands of, as you said, the audience, how people are perceiving you?
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to motivation. You know, the beauty about being a human is we are so flexible. We are so malleable as humans. We can adjust to anything if we want to, and we see there's a reason to, that's beneficial to us. And, you know, you talked about authenticity, and I think that's really key. So I didn't go into this, but there's like 6 elements to defining your brand. How do you define your brand? And one of them is called your brand character. Your brand character, I like to think of it as the hum of kind of the foundation of your brand. And these are the words that people would use to describe you. Like that how would you be described? What's the feel of being around you? What's that like? And I think that foundation is so key to the way we approach everything. And so, you know, some of the foundations that we have: reliability, commitment, loyalty, you know, whatever those foundations are, when you can embrace those, you'll do great, because they're so foundational, they're consistent amongst all parts of the world. And so it's really looking at those focused brand character elements, and that informs everything else that defines who you are.
Beautiful. Yeah. A strong foundation defines everything else, right?
Yeah.
And what are the other 5 elements?
Oh, okay. Well, sure. So there's 5 things. So 6 things in total. So the first one is you always have to think about who am I talking to? Who is the person for my brand? You know, my target. I call it my target, right? Who's really the most important for my brand? And when I work with a CEO, there's many different stakeholders, right? Obviously, employees. It could be shareholders. It could be government, it could be journalists, it could be analysts, it could be all sorts of different audiences. You have to really think about what's most critical, right, to your brand. So who's your brand target? What do they want? What do they need? And there's 2 different types of wants and needs. One is functional, like I'm here to provide a service, right? And the other is emotional. How do they want to feel when they're around me? How do they want to, what's the experience of working with me? So who's your target? What do they need? And then who else could they get that same thing from? It's kind of a comparative framework. Who else could be delivering that same thing that would be different or similar. And then you come down into, okay, so if that's the outside elements, then what are the inside elements? And the inside elements are, what do I offer that's unique? What are my particular strengths? Then the fifth one is, why should I believe you can deliver those strengths? It's really key. That's called the reason to believe, or the reason why. Why should I believe that you can deliver that? And then that last one, as we said, is that brand character.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. And how do you solidify that belief in others? Is there
consistency by how you communicate? So remember how you communicate, the way I act, react, the way I look, the way I sound, and the way I all of those form me, who I am, and how I come across, and being consistent. You know, I like to look at it different ways. The way you think and believe and feel, and is down here. The way you act, react, look, and sound is up here. If these two are not aligned, you don't build a brand. When you can align the two, completely line them up, now you've got a strong brand. And stay consistent with that. The inside and the outside have to match.
That's it. That's it. And leadership is an inside-out game. You know. Right.
Absolutely. Starts from the inside, and many leaders never realize that. They just always focus on what they're doing on the outside. You know, leaders will come to me and say, I want to be great presenters, or I want to be, inspirational. And the first thing I say, well, what's going on the inside? If you're inspired on the inside, there's a good chance you're going to be inspiring
on the outside.
Yeah.